Hello and welcome back. Witch on the Holy Night. Maybe it's been for you just another episode, but for me it's been like 160 days or something like. I think it was 160 days since my last upload. It was. Why didn't I make a part directly after this one? It's not a serious reason, really. I just had a pretty bad series of being ill at the time. Like, I was flat in my bed for like a month. Where I had tonsillitis, I think that's how I pronounce it. Sorry, excuse my bad English and my pronunciation, but yeah, my voice was not in a recording condition, and well, my body was not in recording condition, and I kinda fell out of recording videos, and I met other persons. I have a new, I have a girlfriend, and it's going well. It's going awesome. And well, what bring me back now? I just booted up my Steam after I today have finished my night shift and went to sleep for like 8 hours and booted up Steam and saw that something very awesome for me is coming up, and I didn't look into it, I didn't know it was really this soon. Oh no, I saw it back 1 year, and well, I saw what happened now is I saw that Fate Hollow Ataraxia, or however you pronounce it, is coming out in like 3 days or 4 days, and well, I had to finish this one. I remembered Witch on the Holy Night, and I really like it, so I want to finish it. So this visual novel. I'm gonna start Fate Hollow Ataraxia when it comes out, like 1 or 2 days. However my time schedule is when I have time, you know? But I wanted to get back into things and record more episodes. Because, well, just reading isn't enough for me, let's say that. I really want to record this for some reason. So, anyway, let's continue with what episode are we on? Like episode 4? I think so. I myself have skipped through my older parts to see what happened, and I'm roughly catched up now. I will not remember the most things, but the big stuff I will remember. So let's continue. Oh, next episode. Nights. Oh, what is it? Yes. Episode chapter 3, Nights. Let me tell you how the events of yesterday transpired. One moonless night. You must never look back. On moonless nights, you must never look back. Was it a lesson, or was it a warning? It was so very long ago. At the time, I could not have imagined what my very being would become. One night, it came without warning. I was filled with an anxiety so heightened that it made me want to burst into tears, so I fled to my grandfather's workshop. Unlike the grandfather I knew, he smiled and kindly placed his hand upon my head. Yes, the Red Death follows your every step. Rather than consoling me, he sent me home with only those haunting words. That night, I was certain that I sensed a shadow lurking behind me. Something or someone watching me from afar. Then little by little, year by year, it drew closer. Eventually, presence that once felt like a spot on the horizon grew so close that I could feel its breath down the base of my neck. Of course, it was all in my mind. When I turned around, nobody was there. But that night marked the beginning. In hindsight, I later understood that the indescribable anxiety I felt was a dread of certain death.
Hey dido dido, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed.
How much time has passed since that night? It lingered deep in the recesses of my mind, where childhood memories are kept. A faded storybook-esque memory. On dark nights, I still hear the faint echo of my grandfather's words. But no matter how strong the wind may howl, or how entrancing the song of a girl next to me, I could never bury his ominous words completely.
ご到着ね。
It's here. The girl beside me said. Alice, afflictionless voice spoke volumes of her role as the bystander. That night, there was only me and her. It was the night I would mark as the birth of who I am today. For what should have been quite the memorable night, it sure wasn't a promising start. Dense clouds blocked the starlight above like a black umbrella. A strong wind tore through the sky, carrying the heavy clouds with it. The hands on the clock in the middle of a park pointed skyward, as if reaching for the moon. Unfortunately for them, tonight there was no moon to point at. The winter air grew fiercer as the night wore on. Inhaling felt as though it would freeze me from the inside. The air chilled me to the bone, threatening to pass up my spine directly to my brain, to prevent my mind from being paralyzed, and to prevent my fingertips from becoming stone. I sparked a fire using my internal rhythm and emotion.
触覚を譲るわ。幸運ね。あの位置なら刻んでおいたウィスプが止まる。
I'm transferring tactile feedback to you. Good luck. Stand over there, and the engraved will of a wisp will ignite. I responded to Alice with a nod. And then, for just a moment, I saw the ground. My legs quivered ever so faintly. I told myself they were shaking from the cold, but I wasn't so sure. In reality, they may not have been numbed by the cold, but by fear. I breathe a sigh of relief. My humanity must still be intact if my emotions are still present. Before I could sink into a pool of my own sentimentality, the sensations from a bounded field flowed from Alice into me. A transparent wall covered the entire park. An unrecognizable carpet rooted deep under the earth. Alice Kunji's chant of a mother whose fairy tale permeated the night. The sensation became one with my body. I felt goosebumps on my quivering right arm. Someone had trespassed. The goosebumps crept up my right arm like ants, and slowly but surely made inroads for my heart, holding back the desire to drive them out. I waited for them to reach a certain definitive position. The moonless night. Park's quaint streetlights were not enough to lift the darkness. The ants came to a stop. Far, far from my right arm, they had reached my very heart. Even without the aid of my sense of sight, I could see the intruder lurking in the darkness. To starboard, in the bushes about 30 steps back, on all fours, it was beckoning with its right hand.
Soko!
Yeah, the enemy's movement and my perception of it were on lockstep. I spun around. The enemy's arm stretched out like a spear. This lethal weapon aimed at the back of my head, brushed my hair at breakneck speed. With the omniscient awareness granted by Alice's sword, I managed to avoid it by the skin of my teeth. My hair fanned through the air from the violence of the attack. The strike grazed my cheek and I felt a small sharp pain. It felt like the kiss of death. I switched the flow of my body's blood to a different cycle. The blood running through my veins at a few feet per second transmuted into an imaginary element. My blood became a single circuit, and my heart transformed it into a completely different engine. With me, stirred an unknowable motion of immeasurable heat. Something mystic, yet untapped by humankind, that made me who I am. It was the fire of life, being all miracles and fables. What we mages called magical energy.
Set.
I turned around, set the enemy in my side, and held all up one hand. My arm was the agent of my will. My lack of experience meant magecraft would only be possible with the use of vocalizations and gestures. Magical formula were engraved all over the park. All I had to do was ignite them. I needed to direct the flow of a magical energy within my body into each formula. Typically a mage acts as a conduit, whether wired or wireless. A mage simply pours magical energy into the formula. releasing the energy into the form of a projectile, stream, or any number of other methods would usually suffice, but in my case, it was the feeling of my limb whipping out.
燃えろ
Burn. I fought speed with speed. The enemy's arm extended 10 feet forward. Came engulfed in flames. It was nighttime at the park. The scene, reminiscent of a campfire, but one in which the center of the flames contaminated a humanoid figure, whirling like a shadow puppet. The flame subsided, just as unnaturally as it had ignited. No crackling, no burning smell.
結界返すわ死体を確認するから
You can have the bounded field back. I check the remains. After telling this to Alice, I headed toward the motionless figure. I killed it. I killed it. I killed it. Regardless of who my opponent was, I just took someone's life. My throat parched. I swallowed the truth that without this sense of reality, I would have been helpless. So hard and bitter, impossible to swallow. But I tried to anyway. I was unnervingly calm. My heart pounded and my breath felt heavy, but my mind was nonetheless calm. By the time I realized it, the charred remains were already in front of me. Bracing for a counterattack, I carefully examined the corpse. Everything seemed fine. This body lying slumped in the ground was nothing but ash.
Huh?
Something wasn't right. To begin with, its remains didn't smell organic. Not willing to believe my hunch, I took a closer look at the corpse's face. All that greeted me was the featureless white face of a mannequin. Damn it, they got us again! Screaming, I kicked the mannequin. The corpse crumbled to ash and disappeared with the wind. No, this was no corpse. This was just a puppet, and for all our efforts to lure the master out, we had once again been tricked by a familiar. My debut, my first test, out in the open, would be postponed for another day.
いつになったら一人前にってあれ
Will I ever pass this test? What? At that moment, I suddenly noticed something familiar in the corner of my eye. Something seemed strange about this light on the other end of the park. It appeared as though its shadow were larger than it should be. Was I still drunk on the high of battle? It took me a second to realize what it was.
誰
Who's there? Calling out was a mistake. Startled by my voice, the figure wearing a familiar high school uniform took a step back and then broke into a sprint. Like someone running for their life. What should I say? He was doing exactly that?
追いかけて見られた
After him! We have been spotted! In a rush, I shouted to my partner, but she hadn't even noticed the third party's presence in the first place. Oh, it wasn't as if I could move by myself. Embarrassingly, the fight had taken more out of me than I'd have liked.
ダメ逃げられる
No, you get away!
捕まえて始末しないと
We need to catch and eliminate him. There was no time for niceties. For us, being seen here was a matter of life and death. Wait, get back here, you! Shaking off a numbness in my legs, I made for the park's exit. I had to admire his escape. The witness party to the entire night's proceeding had disappeared into the darkness of a residential district without a trace. Why the hell didn't I sense him in the field? Complaining to myself wouldn't bring back the figure in uniform. Bitter at my own incompetence, I gave up the chase. For temporarily, the park had become Alice's woods. For anyone with a few feet in the, of a park, other park goers' identifiable features and voices became murky, like the stuff of fairy tales. Tonight's proceedings may have had a witness, but if our identities were still hidden, then this was still a chance. It looked like a male from behind. I returned to the park. That uniform was, without a doubt, from my high school. But that was a clue enough. If he was a schoolmate of mine, I had plenty of methods to flush him out. It's one thing after another. Amidst my grumbling, I set my priorities straight. Before some strange rumor spread, I need to seal the witness's mouth shut. That was the highest priority, quickly and without mercy. Looking up, I saw Alice's previously distant figure. Though she was in as much trouble as I was with her existence as a mage also exposed, she had but one thing to say. This means trouble. A statue-like figure, staring into the darkness, seemed more expressionless than calm. I was pissed off. The inscrutable voice resembled the moonless night so much it made me angry. Oh. That was chapter 3, I guess. Next episode, because this was really short. Chapter 4, Blues in Her Name. There really isn't any other way of saying this. I am a magician. Kind of like those witches in fairy tales, who live alone in the woods and perform miracles with a wave of a finger. While the popular depiction of it differs from reality, it's closer to the truth than you know. Or just so we are clear, no, I don't fly through the sky on a broom. I cannot transform into animals or speak with small birds. Modern mages are nothing so fanciful. Our existence sounds unbelievable, but we're quite grounded. Though it may seem like we can do anything, we are actually majorly constrained. And while I still have a lot to learn about it, this is my real job. Sounds a lot more romantic than being a high school student, right? Naturally, this is a secret I don't just share with anyone. A mage must do everything in their power to conceal their work. That is the first and most important of the association's 10 laws Not that I'm tempted to let the cat out of the bag in the least. My secret identity as an honor student is intact, and absolutely no good would come of mere revealing my true nature. If anything, it'd only lead to more headaches. That's why I do everything in my power to keep it a secret. Of course, if I had accomplished anything as a magician by now, then maybe I'd see it differently. I fantasize about revealing my secret's life work to a single special person when I finally make something of myself. Yeah, it'd be pretty stellar to just confess one day, by the way, I'm a magician. That idea alone is enough to keep me from spoiling the big reveal, regardless of the association's rules. My grandfather patted me on the head and I shared these thoughts with him. I don't know if it was praise or what, but I remembered that his touch was gentle. I first learned that I would be succeeding my grandfather one day. On the day I graduated middle school. When I returned home, there he was. Your elder sister left on a journey. From this day forth, you are the heir to Aozaki. He said in such a matter-of-fact way. I knew that the Aozaki family passed down this old tradition of magecraft, but to be honest, I never imagined I would be the one to wield it. Magecraft is supposed to be passed down to a single child. It was my sister's role to take the mantle, and I had no interest in dedicating myself to so many rules and routines. I planned to live a normal life. I had hopes and dreams for the future. I felt bad for my sister, but I was determined to live my life my way. And while I managed to do just that for a time, I was blindsided by a vicious counterpunch. Since then, I have been thrust headlong into a world I had only observed from afar. It was a hell of a way to start high school. But I suppose it wasn't all that bad, all things considered. A lot has happened since then. I was so dazed by this newfound life that a year of school motored right by. I was just a second year before I knew it. Thankfully, nothing drastic had happened. The 6 months, my roommate and I totally tried to kill each other notwithstanding. As it happens, I've got a natural talent at this magic stuff, so I've yet to have any hang-ups there either. I'm only human. I've made my fair share of headaches. I had my fair share of headaches for sure, but never once did I worry about my future. I thought my life would be smooth sailing all the way. If only everything had gone to plan last night.
どう?
Well, Alice Koronji asked Aoko Aozaki the second she entered the house. Her dark eyes succeeded with her voice. Failed to communicate the gravity of the situation. Aoko took off her unflattering coat, hung it on the hanger, and sat down on the sofa. Alice sat across from her, with the table separating them.
そっちは?
Any progress with those things?
よくないわね。偵察に行けるのは7個ぐらい。ここのところ使ってばかりで、作り置きをする余裕もなかったし。
Not at all. I've only got 7 left, that are any good for reconnaissance. I've been using them up fast, and I haven't had the time to make more. Alice's gaze drifted from Aoko to the box on the table.
あの夜、町を監視していた奴はいないの？町の偵察は完璧なんでしょ？そいつら。
Were none of them keeping watch that night? They've never let you down when it comes to this sort of things, have they?
それは昼間の話よ。夜間飛行は危険が多いわ。
During the day, no. But there's quite a risk when flying them at night. Meaning, they were of the latest use when needed the most. Of the least use when needed the most, sorry. Arco sighed.
そういうあなたは？朝は随分と強気だったけど。
Well, how are you faring? You seem pretty confident this morning.
ああ、こっちは予定通りよ。
Yeah, I guess everything's good on my end.
明日までには絞り込めると思う。今朝、飛び丸にうちの生徒の自宅と行動時間を調べさせたから。
I'm pretty sure I know by tomorrow. I told Tobimaru to look into all of the students' addresses and schedules.
あの時間に公園をうろつくやつはめったにいないし、簡単に割り出せる。
Not many people wander the park at that time of night, so it should be easy enough to figure out who it was.
そう簡単に行くの？
How can you be so sure?
行くわよ。伊達に生徒会に勤めてないわ。その程度のデータは揃えてある。
Because I didn't just join the student council to keep up appearances. I've been using my position to keep tabs on everyone.
月1のバイト先はおろか、親しい友人宅との移動時間、その優先順位まで調べ上げてるんだから。
Everything from part-time jobs to friends, addresses, to what they're up to in their spare time.
人には見せたくなかったリストだけど、そんな余裕ないでしょ？だから、そういうのが向いてる副会長にやらせたの。
It's a list I was hoping to keep secret, but we can't afford to do that now, can we? That's why I keep the vice president around. It's the kind of thing he does best. Incidentally, the creation of this secret file started the moment Arco became student council president. The mere rumor of its existence was enough to strike fear into the entire student body.
そう。徹底しているわね。相変わらず。
As sure as always, I see. Alice was only mildly surprised. It had been almost 2 years since they first started living together. She knew as well as anyone that when Arco put her mind to something, she was saw it through to the end.
ま、私もあれがこんな風に役立つとは思ってもみなかったけど。ほんと、備えあれば憂いなしとはこのことね。
Well, I've never imagined I'd use it like this, but it's better to be safe than sorry. But what happened last night was far beyond mere exception to the rule. This predicament should not have been possible.
それより、原因は分かったの？結界の結びに不手際があったなんてのは聞かないわよ。
More importantly, have you figured out what went wrong? And don't tell me it had to do anything with your link to the bounded field. Arco glared at her. The ward was Alice's responsibility. If it was to blame for the last night's trouble, Alice had to own up to her fair share. Alice and Arco may have been roommates and partners, but it was a relationship of conveniences. My lineage had brought them together. We were more like enemies than allies. Ultimately, they were just not a match. There was a blunder. It was punished. There was an opening. It would be attacked. If there was even an opportunity, the two of them would kill each other in the event of such a moment. Hey, that's pretty dark. As Alice locked eyes with Arco. Arco's fierce gaze could make a grown man cower in fear, but Alice did not bat an eyelash.
仮の話だけど、あの結界に落ち度があったのなら、今まで何度もこういう状況になっていたでしょうね。
Assuming the Barnet Field was a problem, wouldn't this have happened countless times before? I suppose you're right, Arco agreed, as the question reaffirmed her trust in Alice.
結界のあり方は完璧だったのね。
So, you're saying there was nothing wrong with it?
絶対とまでは断言はできないけど。
I honestly can't say for sure. Alice answered as flatly as ever. A bounded field is like a sanctuary sealed away from the real world. Steps are taken whereby a certain area is cut off from the outside world. There are various kinds of bounded fields. There are physical ones that close off an area behind a wall, and less tangible ones that use mirrors, mists, or trees to conceal that which occurs within. However, in closing off an area to the outside world, you cannot avoid communicating the abnormality's existence. In other words, the area may be closed off to the outside world, but it is impossible to hide the fact that it is closed off. In time, someone will take interest in a sealed off area, even if they cannot see what is going on inside. Some might say, this is putting the cart before the horse. The ideal field would be the one that was both undetectable and impervious to the interference from the outside. That was exactly the kind Alice had generated in the park the night before.
その場所に用があっても、今はないように思わせれば、誰もそこには立ち入らない。
Even if someone had a reason to be in a place, they shouldn't enter if you've made them forget their reason for being there.
隠したい場所の周りに、一時的な意識の改ざんを促す結界を張る。手間はかかるんだけど、1時間程度の人よけには信頼性は高い結界よね。
It takes an immense amount of time and energy to create a field that produces a temporary illusion around a location you wish to conceal. Would they prove extremely effective for at least an hour or so, right?
アリスの鏡を使った一級品だし、途中で破れることもない。事実、入ってきたのはあの人形だけだとはっきり感じられた。これで完璧じゃなかったら何が完璧なのよ。
And to top it all, it was top class made from your mirrors, and it's not like they shattered while we were using it. The only other presence I felt inside was that of a puppet. If that isn't a perfectly constructed bounded field, then what is?
私もわからない。森作りに落ち度はなかったわ。
I have no idea. The trees were prepared perfectly.
森は数日かけて栽培したものだし、今まで通り信頼できる結界よ。けど例外があったのなら、どこかで見落としがあったのね。
I cultivated the trees and plants over several days, and it's always proved to be a reliable field. But maybe, just maybe, there was something I didn't account for.
参った。こうなると一番いいのはあいつが人形使いだってパターンね。それならかろうじて納得できる。相手が魔術師なら結界の侵入ぐらいできるでしょうし。
Well, crap. In that case, we better hope that the witness was the puppeteer, which would make sense. Which would make sense. A mage would probably be able to penetrate it.
問題は侵入した時の違和感をどうやって消したかってことだけど。
Something else bothers me more. How did he avoid detection? Thought of being targeted by this individual was pretty terrifying. If they were able to penetrate Alice's field, it could only mean that their skills in magecraft were superior to Alice's. Alice, in her current state, be completely helpless against such a foe.
その線はないわ。
I've already determined it was not a mage.
彼は部外者よ。ムクドリはともかく、ロビンが後をたどれなかったもの。魔力の気配は全くなし。誰かの魔術で操られている犠牲者というのもないわね。
This was most certainly an outsider. The Starlings are one thing, but not even Robin was able to follow him. There were no traces of magical energy. So, that rules out a magical pawn. Alko was quickly running out of straws to grasp at. That meant she was out of questions to ask. All she could do was call it bad luck and leave it at that.
魔術師の秘密を見られて、おまけに目撃者を逃がしたか。普通の高校生の悩みじゃないな。
First, you get found out that you are a mage, and you let the witness get away. Why couldn't I just have normal high school problems? The sofa groaned as she leaned back. Her gaze went up to the brown ceiling with a sigh. It wasn't much of a view. She was becoming increasingly depressed.
青子、覚悟を決めておいて。
Alko, make up your mind. The roommate's voice seemed indifferent, but Alko just kept staring up at the wooden ceiling.
それとも、あなたにできないのなら、私が言ってあげてもいいけど。
If you're not up to the task, I can take care of it myself. The cold-mannered girl's statement carried an equally icy implication. Alko took the words in slowly with as much sincerity as she could muster. It was like trying to swallow molten lead.
そうだ。覚悟なんて、もう決めたでしょ。
She's right. I've already made up my mind. The thought sounded hollow, even as it popped into her head. This was clearly different from last time. Her aim was indeed the same. The circumstances surrounding her target were clearly different. She may have been determined before, but that was as a mage. If enemies emerged, she would kill them. If she was challenged, she would step up to the fight. It was a fight between two mages, and her opponent was in the wrong. Even if this could only end in death for one of them, it was an outcome both parties could accept. Kill or be killed. Morality had no weight on the scale. But this time was different. Her opponent was neither enemy nor mage. Even if she was prepared to kill them, this person was likely not ready to die. That's why morality did factor into it now. Was she truly up to the task of murdering an innocent person? Could she swallow the fact that this was a common occurrence for a mage? She snorted sardonically. Being a mage did not mean that Arko was some kind of monk who could cut ties with the real world on a whim. If there was one thing Arko hated, it was doing things without convincing or an understanding of exactly why she was doing them. When she acted, she preferred to act decisively.
うん。ま、やるしかないだろうね。
I guess I don't have any other choice. As she said it, she got up from the sofa, having her fill of the ceiling for one day. Arko had returned to the Arko of always, and Alice was done probing her.
じゃあ、これ。
Take this. As if to reward her, Alice produced a small bottle. It fit neatly in the palm of her hand. The bottle looked completely out of place in her slender fingers. The glass was cloudy and it appeared empty. Some shred of paper remained on the front where there was once a label.
何よそれ。
What's that? Arko stared at the bottle suspiciously.
収納の小瓶。ちょうど一つ余ってたから、あげるわ。
It's a storage bottle. I had one to spare, so I'm giving it to you.
はい？
What?
名前は忘れたけど、中国の小説に出てきたのと同じよ。
I forgot what it's called, but it's a thing out of a Chinese novel. Arko was miraculously able to parse what Alice meant.
それってレンゲ堂の兄弟の話？じゃああの赤いひょうたんと同じなわけ？言いたくないけど、そこら辺の風邪薬のラベルを無理やり剥がして小瓶に見せかけてるそれが？
Are you saying that is the red drinking god from the story about the two brothers who guarded the Lotus Cave? Don't take this the wrong way, but it looks like your everyday medicine bottle with the label ripped off. Alice looked at the bottle and acknowledged how ordinary it looked. She also understood that she would not be the one using it as she set it on the table.
赤いひょうたんじゃなくて、陽子玉の上瓶の方。
Except this is a jade flask, not a red drinking god.
そういう問題じゃない。私は魔術師としての雰囲気を論じてるんだ。
That's not the problem. The problem is maintaining my dignity as a mage.
些細なことを気にするのね。せいろがんの瓶じゃないだけいいと思うけど。
Don't get stuck on the details. Just be happy it's not a bottle of laxatives. Fine. She made a good point.
蓋を開けて相手の名前を尋ねればいいから。
Just open the lid and ask for a person's name.
ただし、相手に抵抗する意志が残っている場合、小瓶は割れるから気をつけて。
But be careful, because if a target is resistant, the bottle will shatter. Arko raised her eyebrow.
ちょっと待った。抵抗する意志があるとダメって、眠っている時にやれってこと？
Hang on. If he's resistant, I can only use it when he's asleep, right?
それは試したことがなかったわ。
I've never tried it, to be honest.
眠っているのに返事をする人っているの？
But if there anyone who but is there anyone who responds to things in their sleep?
たまにいるけど。まあ確かに珍しいわね、そういう人。
You'd be surprised, but true. People like that are rare. In that case, one would have to weaken them until were about to pass out.
ああ、そうそう。薬や魔術がかかっていると、その重さでも割れるから気をつけて。
Oh, I almost forgot. Drugs or magecraft will also cause the bottle to break.
使えない。それってほとんど役立たずってことじゃない。
Then what good is it? What won't break that damn thing?
それは青子次第ね。
A tool is only as good as the person using it. Alice turned away as she replied, as if the topic no longer mattered to her.
はあ、アリスがこういう小道具好きなのは知ってたけどね。これも趣味なわけ？
I know you're fond of using dainty tools like this. Is this a hobby of yours or something? Alco asked, hoping Alice would deny it.
多分。
Perhaps.
それで、どうするの？持っていくのか行かないのか。
So, are you going to take it or leave it? Without answering, Alco divvied up a bit of it before taking the bottle and putting it on in her pocket. She figured she might be able to find some use for it. Two hours had passed, and the clock struck 9. Their conversation had moved from the drawing room to the sunroom, and had manifested into the kind of scene one would not expect in such a mansion.
まあ本当はね、飛び丸に任せる気はなかったんだけど。
To be honest, I didn't really want to leave it to Tobimaru like this. A hot earthenware pot sat on the table. Arco spat out complaints, to no one in particular, as she plucked fruit from it with her chopsticks. Tonight they were eating a traditional Japanese meal that looked out of place in this mansion. When it came to the kind of Japanese hot pot, where all one had to do was buy and boil ingredients, it was usually Arco's responsibility. Alice sat across from Arco, as she silently poked at the pot with a fork.
山城のやつが来るなり、しずきくんはまだ部活に入っていないから面倒見てあげてくれないかな、なんて言ってくるもんだからさ。全校生徒の行動範囲なんて見直す気力なくなっちゃったのよ。
Yamashiro made it a point to say that Tsuzuki hadn't joined the club. It's not like I have the time or energy to keep track of every single student. The egg she had plucked was still as silky as a baby's bottom, so she returned it to the pot. She settled for the shirataki noodles instead.
そりゃあのバカがバイトで忙しいのは知ってるわよ。
I already know that the idiot is constantly busy with the jobs.
だからできるだけ春先までのんびりしてて、あんなのでも親身になってくれそうな部の部長に当たってみたのに。
That's why I tried my best to set him up with a club activity captain that'd be accommodating.
ありがとうの一つもないってのはちょっと尺に触るわよね。ねえ、聞いてるアリス。
What the nerve of a guy, not even a thanks. Are you even listening, Alice? As if her mouth was full, she simply nodded in response. Her expression stated that she had no interest nor opinion on the matter, but she at least appeared to be listening. Satisfied, Aoko nibbled on some Apen fish cake. Unpen fish cake. Whatever.
それに私、いい人なんて言われるやつは信用できないのよ。あろうことか、飛び丸までそんなこと口走る始末だし。あれはいい人なんじゃなくて、ただぼんやりしてるだけなんだっての。
I just can't trust anyone who says he's a great guy. Surprise, even Tobimaru was gushing about him. The only thing he's great at is being an ad.
だいたいあそこまで言われて怒りもしないなんてどうかしてるわ。
I mean, there's really something wrong with his brain if he didn't get angry after what I said. Her thoughts went to that what had happened in the student council room earlier that day. She remembered how non-responsive Sojiro had been to her words. His unconcerned face alone was enough for her to swallow the rest of her handpan without chewing it.
何が分かってるんだなよ。
I thought you would understand, he says. His words were a lot like vows. It ended her childhood.
青子ちゃんは分かっているんだね。
No, don't you, Aoko?
それでも自分であり続けられるということはとても強いことなんだよ。
Through it all, you never lose sight of who you are. You're so strong. Perhaps it was meant as a compliment. But she took it as a patronizing way to pity her. Because the person who said it had acted like she was looking at a wounded animal.
ま、あんな変態の言ってたことなんて今さらどうでもいいけどさ。
Whatever. Who cares what that weirdo thinks or says? That episode might have made her the most confused she had ever been in her life. Yet, what shook young Aok the most was the look of pity on the face of the person she admired the most.
喧嘩。
You thought? Abrupt comments stopped her in her tracks.
ごめん、聞いてなかった。喧嘩ってあの喧嘩？
Sorry, what did you say? Something about a fight? Alice nodded.
あなたの感想だけじゃ状況はよくつかめないけど。
I can't say I completely understand from what you've said.
つまり、青子はその人に喧嘩を売りたかったのね。
But it does come across as if you were trying to pick a fight with him. Alice bit into the very last hanpan. Her remarks were unexpected but completely on point.
なんでそうなるのよ。
Why did you go there?
私はあんなのと1秒だって関わりたくないだけだってば。
I'd rather die.
だいたいそれどころじゃないし、興味とか全くないし、会話もこれ以上ないってぐらい簡潔に切り上げたし。
I'd rather die than spend another second with him. I mean, seriously, gross. I have no interest with him in him whatsoever. I'd loved it if we never had to say anything about him ever again.
なら、どうして今そんな話をするの？
So, why over talk about him?
え？それは、あんたに今日の調査過程を知らせてあげたのよ。それ以外何があるっていうの？
What? I was just reporting on today's investigation. Something wrong with that? What other reason could Alice be suggesting Aoko had for bringing it up? It would be several hours later in bed that Aoko realized that she had dug her own grave.
いいけど、私は別に。
No, not really.
ただ、青子は本当にその人が嫌いなの？
But does he really bother you that much? Alice ate her hot pot in silence, as if she was honoring some sort of sacred ritual. Her face was indifferent as always. but she was secretly enjoying how flustered Aoko was. Aoko remained oblivious to this. Normally she would have noticed immediately, but she was not quite herself at this moment.
本当にって、そりゃそうよ。気に食わないって何度も言ってるじゃない。
Does he really? Well, of course he does. I think I've said that often enough.
そう。具体的には
The fork and the sticks moving around. Okay. What specifically about him do you dislike?
は？具体的にはって、そんなのに理由なんて。
I don't need a specific reason to... She trailed off as she finally realized how disagreeable she was being. She could come up with no reason why. Her instincts had told her that she was incompatible with that fic. But why such a strong reaction? More than anything in the world, Aoko hated emotions without reason and decisions made with no rationale.
嫌いなものは嫌いなんだから、ちゃんとどっかに理由があるんだと思うけど。
I just don't like him. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, I think. She became more flustered the more she talked. Unfortunately for her, she could not come up with a coherent reason to hate Tojuro Suzuki. It was not his fault that he had zero common sense. It was the fault of the environment he grew up in. In fact, it was admirable that he was trying so hard to adapt to civilized society. As clueless as he might seem, he was not a complete waste of space. If he seemed a bit slow, it was only because his gentle nature compelled him to think before acting. When one looked at everything objectively, the conclusion was obvious. As much as she was loath to admit it, he really was unassuming. Dugo that everyone had him pegged as.
ちょっ
That
と
was a
本
mouthful.
気かっての。
For some reason.
人間的に悪いところ、本当にみじんもないのかあれ。
I can't believe what I'm thinking. Is there really nothing wrong with him? There was plenty, so she left it at that for now. The chopstick she had been using came to a stop. She was getting very annoyed. An irritational hatred burned through her head. Unable to come to terms with her feelings, she desperately tried to analyze Sojiro, but her mind only went into more circles. Alice fixed Aoko with a deadpan stare.
呆れた。
I'm shocked. A small sigh.
らしくないわね、青子。
This isn't like you, Aoko. Those words were the final blow. Aoko felt the floor fall out from under her. She was unable to leave her chair until after Alice had finished eating and left. However, even after getting knocked down, Aoko Aozaki was not one to be kept that way. She made a short work of cleaning up after dinner, and after conceding the first bath of the night to Alice, left the drawing room. Since it was customary in this sort of mansions to turn off the lights in leaving an empty room, Only lit areas in the house were the drawing room and the two girls' bedrooms. Upstairs was enveloped in darkness. Arco briskly made her way to the deepest part of the east wing along the long corridor, illuminated only by the lights of the moon, and arrived at her room.
結論として、
All being said,
やっぱり騙し討ちは気に食わない。
sneak attacks make me sick to my stomach. She had been considering this on the way down to the corridor, or perhaps this ever since she left the drawing room. The moment she entered her room, she drew her proverbial line in the sand.
やるにしても隠れるのはなし。正面から堂々と向かい合って理由を言う。
If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it face to face. I give it to him straight. This was not a concession driven by feelings or sympathies or compassion for her. This was simply the way things ought to be.
よし。そうと決まれば。
Okay, with that out of her way. After settling her resolve, she headed to the study next door.
木曜棚の当時欄、緑の背拍子と。
Let's see. Birthday shelf, winter solstice, green spine. Without hesitation, she removed one book from the countless volumes on the shelf. The introductory textbooks transported her from the Aozaki residence were separated into 6 shelves, labeled Monday and Saturday. Arco had organized the books by topic, genre, and purpose, and had more or less memorized exactly what was in her personal library. Referencing any of this material took her no time at all. It was to be expected from keeper of the study. Oh, this keeper's fiefdom was nothing more than a small room. Fiefdom? However, both Arco and Alice had given up on all hope on the cluttered mess of a library in the annex. Nevertheless, on occasion, Arco would have no option other than to give Alice a heads up and visit it when the study did not meet her needs.
できればそれは避けたいところだけど、と。
I really hope I don't have to go over there now. Arco placed the thick green book down and took a seat. The desk she sat at was dirty but uninviting. It wasn't the sort of furniture girls her age grew attached to, but she liked its minimalistic elegance nonetheless. She flipped lightly through the book's old, worn pages.
アリスみたいな結界は私にはまだ無理だ。
I still can't manage anything like Alice's bounded field.
人払いはその場所自体に頼らないといけないか。
I guess I'll just have to find a place off a beaten track. The mountains? The woods? School building empty at night? I was looking for a place that would be except for the worst of luck, void of people, allowing her to forego the use of magecraft.
茨の壁だの魔力の霧だの、そういう回りくどいのもなんだしな。退路を断つっていうなら、もっとこう見た目にも状況的にも派手な方が効果的だし。
Walls of thorns and magical mists are so indirect. If I want to cut off any route of escape, I need someplace flashy and obvious, both on purpose and in looks. Muttering about how there had to be some basic spell that fit her needs, she continued to flip through the pages. It goes without saying that she was looking for a way to deal with the witness from the previous night. Matchcraft uses were many, but not all encompassing. Fundamentally, Magecraft was good for making things or phenomena that existed already, while more or less bypassing the time and resources conventional means would require. It was, however, unable to manifest phenomena that were impossible in this world. It was essentially an unequivalent exchange that used a variety of shortcuts. A phenomenon made possible by human hands, actualized by an individual's power. That was generally what Magecraft was. To give a simple example, if Aoko were so inclined, she could make an entire lake appear at the mansion. However, it had to be something that existed in this world. Nothing not seen with the smallest matter could escape this unbreakable law. Even if Aoko were to release a level of heat on par with an F-15 fighter jet's afterburner, that event would only be possible if a circuit named Aoka Aozaki acted as a temporary input variable in the magical formula. The derived equivalence was simply a value that already occurred in reality. If a variable in the equation did not exist elsewhere in reality, the spell would not be valid. The imaginary element, known as magical energy, was like a lie that could only slip its fantasy through the network of order at the moment of ignition. Giving from the non-existent, illusions invading reality was something the universe did not allow.
とは言っても、エーテルは基本何にでもできるんで、大元が嘘なんだっけ？
Still, what was it? You can combine the imaginary factor ether with pretty much anything else since it's not real itself.
魔力だけで構成されたものは幻想扱いされて急速に消えていくとか。典型的な結界、茨の壁とかはもともと茨を生やしておいて魔力で一気に成長、強化してるものだし。
If anything composed entirely of magical energy is little more than an illusion, and will quickly dissipate. Even a typical field like a wall of thorns generally starts with the user planting the thorns first before using magical energy to grow and strengthen them in an instant.
魔力っていうのは結局使い勝手のいいガソリン兼事象に火をつける火花ってわけで。
In the end, magical energy is just an easy-to-use fuel source by acting as a firework that ignites with a phenomenon.
なんて言いつつ、
So they say.
架空要素云々より基本的な回路の接続と魔力を加工して弾くことぐらいしかできないのよね、私。
Imaginary factors are all well and good, but all I can do is connect a basic circuit and process energy into a projectile. Nothing to herself, she looked at the bounded field or something similar more suited to her current ability. The identity of her witness was still unknown. What if they were a classmate of Aoko's? She had any number of pretexts by which to lure them out. The problem was after that.
そうなると、 問題は命中率よね。一撃で決めないと逃げられちゃうだろうし。
And it becomes a question of precision. If I don't take care of him in one blow, he might slip away. To be honest, she wasn't confident she could handle this smoothly without Alice's support. But Aoko saw no reason to ask for help given that the target in question was a regular bystander. Fledgling as she was, she still had her pride as a mage. She continued to turn through the pages rhythmically. In the midst of fluttering sounds of fumbling through the volumes, Aoko suddenly stopped her finger at a certain page.
見つけた。
Found it. She smiled to herself. It was a simple formula that she had tucked away somewhere in the recesses of her memory. A spell of simple destruction.
檻をね、作ればいいのよ。
Cage. That's all I need to make.
狩りをする時の常套手段じゃない。獲物を逃げられないようにするのは。
It's the oldest trick in the book that any hunter worth their salt would use. She placed a bookmark in the book, closed it, and got up to return to her room. Suddenly she felt someone watching her. Through a window, she saw her in the night. Girl, staring back, a cold-hearted expression. The girl's face was hers, the expression undoubtedly her own. She began planning how to erase the witness. Well, to say it was something as elaborate as a plan was overkill. This was just a job. She was going to make a cage and then lure out her prey into it. There was no getting around it. Premeditated violence. Permeated violence.
そろそろアリスは上がったかな。
I wonder if Alice is done with her bath. She mumbled out loud, as if a bath would return some warmth into her chilled heart. About 20 minutes had passed since she gave Alice the privileges of using the hot water first. Alice tended to bathe quickly, finishing well under 10 minutes. Her roommate was the type that could not understand the spirit of the bath, treating it as nothing more than a necessity for looking after one's body. For Alice, the concept of staying in a hot spring and sounded more like a chore than anything. Or in the regard, Aoko had to agree.
よし、浴場はカラッと。あれ、今に電気ついてる？
I guess it's my time to... Huh? Is the drawing room lights on? It was unusual for Alice to sit in the drawing room after her bath. On nights when she had nothing to discuss, it was in her style to return directly to her bedroom.
アリス、いるの？
Alice, are you in here?
うん。
Alice nodded. With no book in hand. It appeared that Alice had been waiting for Aoko.
そういうこと。私も信用ないな、ほんと。
So that's how it is. She really has no faith in me, does she? Aoko scratched her head in exasperation. Was it that Alice was worried about her, or had no faith in her? Her expression was so calm, Aoko could hardly figure what she was thinking.
方針なら決まったけど、聞く？
I have a plan. Wanna hear it?
その顔を見れば聞かなくてもわかるわ。
I can tell what it is by the look on your face.
迷いがなくなったのはいいことだけど。悪い癖ね、青子。
It's good that you are no longer very wavering, but you must do something about that tail of yours, Arko. Alice let out a small sigh. It was unusual for Alice to make such a display of her disappointment.
ええ、騙し討ちは趣味じゃないから。殺すにしても正々堂々、正面から理由を言った後にする。
I don't like sneaky attacks, so I'm going to do it fairly, and only after I've told him why, straight to his face.
それならすっぱり後腐れもないし。文句ある？
That waiver will be absolutely no troubles later. Any complaints?
文句はないわ。そういうの、好きか嫌いかはこの際関係ないでしょうし。
I would have any. This is really only a matter of personal preference after all.
けど、
However,
確実性はどうかってことでしょ？私、いまいち命中率悪いし。その辺の問題は場所選びでフォローしようかなと。
you're worried that I mess up, alright? My accuracy hasn't exactly been stellar lately, so I was thinking about how to cover my bases with a location.
私はアリスのようにはいかないから、物理的に逃げられない場所にしようと思うんだけど、何かアイディアない？
I can't throw up a field like you. I was thinking of doing it somewhere where he physically cannot escape. Any ideas? Alice nodded in thought. The finger that gently rested on her lip, indicating that her question was to her liking.
鏡はどう？鏡の国なら永遠に閉じ込めていられるけど。
What about mirrors? You could easily seal him in the House of Mirrors for all eternity.
あんた、そういうところ常識ないわよね。
Seriously, that's your idea? She frowned at Alice's bad taste. It was the kind of idea her roommate would found to be inspired, but Aoko knew was out of the question. Aoko was looking for a natural bounded field she could prepare, not a real bordering on true magic that she couldn't create to begin with.
なら他を当たるのね。でも、ここを使うのだけはやめてちょうだい。
And we'll choose otherwise, I suppose. But please, whatever you do, do not bring him here. I think we know what will happen.
言われなくても分かってるって。
You don't need to tell me that.
けど、そうね。
But actually, yeah.
ミラーハウスはいいアイディアかも。
The House of Mirrors might actually work. Alko smirked as she shifted her balance away from a wall she was resting on.
サンキュー、アリス。全体の流れは出来上がったわ。
Thanks, Alice. I've just figured out the whole plan.
ほんと、こういうのってダメ元でも相談してみるものよね。
Guess it's always best to talk to someone when you're in a bind. Now in a good mood, Alko retreated from the drawing room. Alice tried and failed to visualize what kind of blueprint Alko had drawn up in her mind, but whatever it was, it appeared to be the thorough kind Alko was good at. Alko headed for the bathroom, humming to herself as she went. A year and a half of sharing a living space had taught Alice something. When Aoko Aozaki was in this good of a mood, only deep trouble would follow.
青子一人に任せていいのかですって。
Hmm? You want to know if I'm okay with letting Aoko handle this on her own? It was Unclear how long the bird had been in the drawing room. Shipping at Alice, a robin-like bird, pranced across the furniture as if it were its property.
そうね。彼女が一人でやると言ったのだから、任せるのが正しい信頼関係なんでしょうけど。
Yes, I suppose said she wanted to do it alone. And I do want to know she has my entire faith. Still. The girl in black raised her arm. Arm? Bird shipping, once again, lighted on her outstretched affectionate finger.
嫌な話だけど。
Suffice to say.
信頼と信用はまた違う話よね。
Trust and faith are two very different things. The bird puffed out its stout chest in agreement, and Arko was none the wiser to her roommate's rather unsettling comments. The following day was a typically overcast one. Today's classes ended as they had started, uneventfully. Winter break was just around the corner, and with it, final exams. Although Miyazaki High prided itself on discipline, it was still a private school, which promoted a culture of independence among its students. Industrious students had a place to explore that side of themselves under the guardianship of a student council president. More easygoing students could spend their time after school as they wished, as long as they were mindful of personal responsibility. The fact that the poster boy of independence was the student council vice president indicated just how vast the spectrum was.
青崎、いるか?
Naozaki, you in there? Torimao Tsukiji opened the door of the Citadel's student council room, the rumored location for their secret meetings. Despite all appearances, he was the student council vice president, who also happened to be the poor soul responsible for executing the student council's dirty work. One person was waiting for him in the cramped room. The student council president, Aoko Aozaki, sat imperiously in a folding chair, glaring at Tobimaru's and his boisterous entrance.
相変わらず寒いな、この部屋。なあ、今度ストーブ購入しようぜ。
This room is freezing as usual. Really need to buy a heater. So as not to succumb to Aoko's oppressive silence, Tobimaru opened with some casual small talk.
お疲れ様。ところであんた、何しに来たのか分かってる?
Thank you for coming. Let's get down to business. Do you know why I've asked you here?
まあな。ただ、事務的に話すのって寒いじゃねえか。
I have an idea. What's up with the formality, Aozaki?
少しぐらい世間話でもしねえとつまらねえだろ。
Pretty cool to talk shop right away all the time, you know. Tobimaru closed the door and sat down across from Aoko. He was holding a blue envelope.
こういう時は無駄口は叩かない方がいいわよ。
Yeah, and loose lips sink ships.
なんとなくプロっぽいでしょ。
Might remember that once you get out into the real world.
なる。いや。
Alright, I'll remember. Wait a sec. Nice try. Tobimaru was halfway to agreeing with Aoko before he caught himself and began to shake his head. As much as Tobimaru enjoyed the lack of red tape in his new line of work, he was not ready to turn full spy on his first day on the job.
それで、調べ終わったの?
So then, are you done with your investigation?
ああ、ついさっき最後の聴取を済ませてきた。
Yeah, I finished your last interview just now.
詳しいことはその封筒に入ってる。お前から渡された例のファイルもそんなか。
The details are in the envelope along with the file you gave me. I tossed the envelope onward to the table. Good. Alko picked it up and began to scan through the documents that were inside. She entered her own little world, not sparing the slightest bit of attention to Tobimaru. If ignoring other people were a skill, she would be a master at it.
なあ、
何？
What?
一つ聞きたいんだけどよ。
I just wanted to ask one thing.
だから何？
Yeah, and? The room was filled with a chilling silence. Aoko continued reading without an ounce of emotion upon her face. Tobimaru kept up an air of indifference. His stare remained fixed intently on her.
青崎、そういうの作って楽しい？
Do you get a kick out of doing this kind of thing, Aozaki?
楽しいわけないでしょ。こんなの作ったところであんまり使う機会なんてないんだから。
Of course not. What's so fun about gathering intel I hardly even get to use?
そうか。ならいい。
Right, just wanted to check. Whether or not he was convinced, Tobimaru stood up from a chair with a disappointed expression.
最後まで読めばわかるだろうが、あんまり確証は取れなかったぜ。
You figure this out just by reading it all, but I wasn't able to dig up anything conclusive.
というより、おとといあの辺りにいた生徒はいないって話になりそうだ。まあ断定はできないけどな。
Well, all indications. But there weren't any students in the area the day before yesterday. It's not like I can say for sure, though. No longer concerned over his task, Tobimaru headed towards the door. As if to say, it was out of his hands.
そうだ。
Oh, and one more thing.
そういえば、一人だけ該当しなかったやつがいる。季節外れの転入生までは、青崎も調べきれなかったみてえじゃねえか。
There was one student that wasn't included in your dragon. You forgot to include any out-of-term transfers. Arko raised her head, ever so slightly. He was right. The recent transfer student was not included within the scope of her investigation.
そんなわけで、その字に関しては調べてないぜ。
So, I haven't looked at Sonoji.
まあ、あいつならいつだろうと遅くまでバイトだろうが。いや、人殺しを見たなんてこと口走ってるようじゃ、家で悪い夢でも見てたのかもしれねえか。
Oh, considering it's him, it's safe to assume that he was working late. Oh wait, it would be if he hadn't have mentioned something about seeing a murder or whatever. I told him that it was probably just a bad dream. Tobimaru cheerfully left the student council room. What? Simultaneously, Akko felt her fingers go numb. The documents she was holding spilled all over the table.
そんな、まさかね。
Can't be. That's not possible. She broke out into a cold sweat and tried to tell herself that there must be some kind of mistake. However, an uncomfortable feeling in her gut would simply not go away. Perhaps because her intuition was almost always right at times like these.
バカらしい。
You gotta be kidding me. And yet she knew what she had to do. She would not have hesitated to kill Tobimaru if he had been the witness. But what if it was who she was thinking of? Just considering the possibility caused her blood to run cold. Aoko put her forehead into her hands and began to brood. And then, suddenly, let us talk choice. You will always be faced with choices. A virtuous fool and a wicked sage. You cannot save both. You must pick one. It is the freedom granted to you. 2 years earlier, Aoko muttered the words offered by her grandfather the day she replaced her elder sister as his successor, and let out a sigh of lament.
すごくバカみたい。
This has to be a joke. She laughed at her own intuition, but it was no joke. If only those words had never been said. Aoko locked up the student council room and left it for the day. Calmly as though nothing untoward had happened, she greeted the students as they passed her in the halls. She was almost shocked by how naturally she seemed. There were still plenty of students at the school. The grounds were noisy, with the chattering of students who had finished the day but had yet to head home. Others still had club activities. The grey sky looked ready to pour, but nobody seemed to pay it any mind. Amidst the calmer, Aoko hastened to the school gate. She passed by some students in animated conversation. They seemed to be talking about their after-school plans. Apparently they were adamant about maximizing their free time. She could not figure out how they could possibly be so irresponsible, focused on fun, but at the same time in no mood to make fun of be envious of him. 2 short years prior, he had been just like them.
根は冷めてるのかな、私って。
I wonder if I'm becoming disintented to it all. She retied her scarf, this time more tightly, to give off an air of solitude. But she was fooling no one. After all, what people who feign solitude are really masking is rejection.
そうよね。孤独っていうのはああいうのを言うもんでしょうし。
Solitude, rejection, are 2 sides of the same coin. By the school gates was busier than usual. A group of boys appeared to be huddled behind it. A transparent attempt to be discreet in terms of both location and loudness of voices did nothing to hide the fact that they were noisily arguing about a girl standing alone on the other side of the street. The girl was clothed in a black cape. At first glance it could have been mistaken for a normal attire, but those for Miyazaki could tell that she wore the uniform of a prestigious girls' school. Said school had no connection to Miyazaki High in any way, shape or form. The 2 schools were miles apart, both physically and spiritually. A member of a school student body was a rare sighting, as the majority were forced to live in the school dorm. Rainy Girls Academy had a reputation as a school for princesses. It was a rare indeed for one to be slumming with the common folk. That alone would have been enough to cause the ruckus among the boys. But this girl looked the epitome of class. One could not help but describe the standing figure as charming. The way she was silently, motionlessly waiting was reminiscent of a meticulously composed portrait. Aoko took one look at her before instantly recalling that one word, solitude.
まったくうちの男子どもは家に帰りもせず陰でこそこそやってるのはそういうこと。
Okay, you lame brains. Don't you have anywhere better to be? Disgusted, Aoko barged through the gate. At this point, she would normally head home, but today she crossed the streets towards the waiting girl.
あれなるは生徒会長様。
Crap, it's the student council president.
くそ、追っ払う気なのかよ。痛いんならいつまでだっていさせてあげればいいじゃんか。
Damn it, she's trying to chase her away. It because Girl B, she has the right to stand where she wants to.
てか怒られる？怒られるのあの天使。
She's gonna go nuclear. The president versus the angel.
よその生徒でも校門前にいるぐらいなら別に問題はないと思うけど。
Yes, man. Who cares if she's from another school? She's not even on school property, right? Right, guys?
青子女子は容赦ねえからな。下手すると平手だぜ。平手。
Don't mess with Madam Aoko. You're just asking to be smacked. The boys ran their mouths behind her back. Not in the mood to shut them up, Aoko walked right up to the girl and offered an informal wave.
どうしたのアリス。こんなところに来たって何も面白いことはないって言ったのに。
Something the matter, Alice? I told you before, there's nothing of interest for you here.
ありえねえ！
For real? Aoko heard the boys by the gate lose their collective minds and did her best to ignore them.
あのことを確かめに。
I wanted to be sure,
青
but...
子、
Aoko,
あの人たち邪魔なんだけど。
those people are a nuisance.
分かってる。今追っ払うから。
You think? I'll chase them off. In cross contrast to Alice's small voice, Aoko spoke loud and clear. Naturally, this was on purpose, so to deal with the riffraff by the gate all at once.
会長こっち来んぞ。
Grab, she's coming this way.
おい押すなよ。後ろのやつどけって。俺校舎に逃げるから。
Stop pushing me. Move it. I'm out.
いやでもあの子会長と知り合いなんでしょ。うまく会長に紹介してもらうとか。
But doesn't it look like they're tied? Maybe we could get the press to introduce us.
さすが一年坊主。まだ戦場の現実ってもんを理解していねえ。よし、死の間際までいい夢見ろよ。
Rookie mistake. You still haven't experienced the realities of the battlefield. On second thought, don't let dreams be dreams. It's your funeral. Perhaps just because too many of them had gathered in one place, the mob entered a frenzied panic as they tried to escape. Aoko addressed them all.
さーて、部活動があるわけでもなし、ただ家に帰るだけの帰宅部の皆さん、こんなところで何を集まってるのか教えてくれる？
Well, what do we have here? Is it the go home early club? Would you mind telling me what you're all doing gathered in a place like this with no club activities to attend? The student council president stared daggers at the boys.
何しろ試験前だもの。
In any case, exams are coming up.
身になることなら私も教えてほしいけど、まさかガン首並べて女学院のお嬢様を眺めてただけなんてことはないわよね。
I'm sure it sure would be horrible if instead of going home to study, you were loitering around just to oogle another school student. Now, wouldn't it?
声をかける勇気もなくて眺めてただけなんてことは。
It's not like a single one of you had the guts to even go up to her and say something. Not one of them was brave enough to admit that this hit them the nail on the head. If any of them had such a courage, we would have already been chatting the young lady up.
いや、僕教室にちょっと忘れ物が。
I think I forgot something in the classroom.
こんなオチならダメ元で玉砕しとくんだった。
If I had known it was going to end like this, I would have at least gone down trying.
天文部に行って双眼鏡借りるのどうだ？屋上からお顔を賜るとか。
If I were to borrow binoculars from the astronomy club, I'm sure we could get another view from the roof.
天文部にそんなのねえよ。あるとしたら野鳥同好会じゃね？
The astronomy club doesn't have binoculars, dummy. If anyone does, it would be the Wild Birds Society.
それ先月会長が潰したじゃん。鳥めでてる暇があるなら彼女作れって。
The press destroyed those last month. If you have enough time for birdwatching, you have enough time to find a girlfriend, chicken.
ああ、彼女作れですか。すみませんす。今日は裏口から帰るっす、ザキさん。
Finding a girlfriend? Sorry, Saki. I'm going to cut out through the back exit.
くそ、じゃあな会長、また明日。
I got a jet too. Later, press. See you tomorrow. And with those also charming remarks, the boys scattered with their tails between their legs.
楽しそうね、青子。
You seem to be enjoying yourself, Aoko.
わかる？
How could you tell? Aoko's response slipped out all too easily. In truth, there was not that many bad apples at Miyazaki High, and dealing with them wasn't really that bad.
で、
So,
ここまで出向くってことは何か分かったの？
what brings you down here? Did you find something out?
結界に残っていた気配の識別は、あとはここで確かめればいいだけよ。
I identified traces of a witness from within the field. All we need to do is now is put a name to them.
そう。アリス、いつからここに？
Is see, Alice. How long have you been waiting here?
下校時刻から。
Since school was dismissed. So she had been here for roughly an hour. Standing in the same place for an hour would be taxing for someone as sensitive to the cold as Alice.
悪いわね、無理させて。
I'm sorry, if you would have told me.
別に好きでやってることだから。
Don't be, I'm just doing it because I wanted to. As she spoke, her black eyes were fixed up upon the gate and the students passing through it. She had likely been observing the gate in this manner for the past hour.
私を待ってたわけじゃないんでしょ？今からでも付き合うわ。
You weren't waiting for me, were you? Well, I'm here now anyway, so can we go? Alice nodded in assent. If Alice was still here, it meant she had not found the witness yet. If she had found the student, Alice would have already gone home, ahead of Aoko, and begun to research the student's background.
私の方はダメだった。
Nothing came up on my end. She reported the results of Tobimao's investigation. Alice remained silent. With that, the conversation ended, leaving the two silently endure a freezing wind to endure a endure the freezing wind. Silence stakeout dragged on endlessly. Students committed to pass the gate, each shocked at the sight of the unusual combo at and head home. After 20 minutes, Aoko let a sigh escape her mouth. Perhaps from boredom, perhaps from the cold, or perhaps from both.
ねえ、アリス。帰り黎明に寄ってかない？
Hey, on your way home, do you want to jog by dawn? Aoko quickly turned to Alice to catch her reaction. Dawn was the name of one of Aoko's favorite coffee shops. Offering no clear indication as to whether she was critical of Aoko's lace attitude or agreeing to her whims, Alice's gaze shifted ever so slightly. Aoko followed her stare.
あれ、青崎も待ち合わせか？
Hey, Ozaki, are you meeting someone here too? Sudden voice took her off guard. There was only one person who spoke with this gentle, good-natured tone.
そう。やっぱそうなるわけか。
Of course, it'd be him. Turning her back to Alice, Aoko moved her focus to the newly appeared student.
それで、今日は何の用？
Can I help you with something? A pointless politeness flew out of a window. Already in a bad mood, Ako's mood plummeted the longer she looked at Sojuro. The subtlety of her expression, however, was lost on him.
いや、これから駅前で水泳部の部長と待ち合わせなんだけど、そのことでお礼を言っておきたくて。
No thanks, I was just on my way to the station to meet the swimming club's captain. And I wanted to say thanks.
Hmm?
The word was completely unexpected. Thanks. Joining a club. Aoko had a hunch that he was about to say something brainless.
ふーん。お礼って、お礼参りってこと？
By thanks you mean payback, right?
Hmm?
Fortunately, Sojuro was completely unaware of the more sinister implications of the word payback.
よくわからないけど、そんな大したことじゃないよ。
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but it's no big deal.
ただ、水泳部は夏までそう忙しくないって話だったから。
It's just that the swimming club captain said that the club doesn't get that busy until summer. Sojuro was just about to thank her for recommending a club that would not take up much time, and Aoko cut him off with an expression of disinterest.
当然でしょ。幽霊部員になりそうな生徒なんて紹介できないから。忙しいあなたでも務まりそうな場所があったから口に出しただけよ。
Of course, I couldn't very well introduce you to a club that I know you would never turn up to. All I just was mentioned that even some as busy as you could join.
なるほど、無駄がないね。
I see. Very efficient. His open admiration for her snapped Aoko's will to fight. Finding a suitable club and negotiating with its captain hadn't been an efficient use of her time at all.
とにかくお世話になったから、それで礼を言っときたくて。
Anyway, you really helped me out. I just wanted to say thanks. Sojuro gratefully dipped his head, but not before the flustered Aoko stopped him.
よしてよ。今あなたにそんなことされても迷惑だから。
Give me a break. You're just going to give me a headache if you do that.
それで、水泳部はどう？やっていけそう？
So, how's the swimming club? Does it seem like a good fit? An awkwardness infiltrated her previously sharp gaze. Sojuro was able to pick up on the odd change in her behavior, but could not divine its reason. So he simply started with what he knew so far, and reported the most recent information he had.
ああ、水泳部はクビになった。
Oh, I got kicked out of the club already.
なんでよ！
What? Why? Aoko instinctively shouted at the unexpected response. Like a human jack in a box. This unexpected development threw her mind into a tizzy, and she momentarily forgot the complicated feelings she had been wrestling with.
だって今から待ち合わせだって。
But you just said that you were on your way to meet the captain.
それは、これからヤシロギの温水プールに連れて行ってくれるからだよ。
Yeah, the captain's taking me to the heated pool in Yashirogi. Sojuro stated this very matter of factly. To the still reeling Aoko.
話がつながらない。そこまでうまくいってるのに、どうして入部を拒否されるのよ、あんたは。
I'm not following. Things seem to be going fine. Why would I kick you out?
そりゃ、俺が泳げないからだろ。
Oh, that's easy because I can't swim.
はあ。
Aoko reached up her fingers and pinched the bridge of her nose as she proceeded to process it as
し
answer.
ずきくん、昨日の私の質問は覚えてる？走るのか泳ぐのか、どっちがいいかってやつ。
Suzuki, do you remember my question from yesterday? The one where I asked you whether you preferred running or swimming?
私の記憶は正しいけど、一応確認しておくわね。
I'm confident that you repeated that I remember your answer, but please repeat it to me.
あなた、確かに泳ぐ方だって言ったけど。
You said you preferred swimming, right?
ああ、昔から泳げないのはなんとか克服したかったんだ。反対に走る方は得意だけど。
Yeah, since I was little, I've always wanted to learn, and I'm already really good at running, so. Energy spent, Aoko finally understood.
俺が1年なら1から鍛えてくれたらしいんだけど。
Apparently, it would have taken me in and trained me from square one if it were my first year.
あと3ヶ月で3年になる身分なのに、金槌の部員は雇えないそうだ。
Sadly, it sounds like they can't recruit a second year like me who thinks like a rock, especially with only 3 months left in the school year.
けど部長が親身になってくれて、これから泳ぎを教えてくれることになったんだよ。
But the captain was really nice about it and even offered me to teach me how to swim. The Julius words were spoken from a place of joy, a fact that failed to reach Aoko.
はあ、つまり欠陥品を売りつけたってわけか。こりゃ水泳部の部長に合わす顔がないっと。ちょっと待った。
Huh? So in other words, I tried to palm off defective goods. I'll never be able to show my face to the swimming club captain again. Wait, but isn't the captain, huh?
しずきくん、水泳部の部長って。
Suzuki, is the swimming club captain. The swimming club captain is. She stopped herself short of a girl. She was afraid of how that might look. That she might now not be able to rein herself in as she started.
もういいわ。気持ちは分かったから、どこか遠くにいてくれない？少し疲れてて、とてもじゃないけどあなたの相手はしていられないの。
You know what? It doesn't matter. I don't understand now. I understand now. You can just go far, far from here. Okay? I just can't deal with you right now.
飛び丸もそんなことを言ってたな。青崎は昨日と今日、珍しく疲れてるって。何かあったのか？
Tobimaru said the same thing. Come to think of it, he said that you were unusually tired yesterday and today. Did something happen?
ちょっとね。でもいいの。解決したみたいだから。
Kind of, but it's fine. It seems to have resolved itself.
それより、しずきくんはどう見える？私、そんなに疲れて見えるのかな？
Anyway, how do I look to you, Tsuzuki? Do I really look that exhausted? Why had she asked him this? Blurting out things for no reason and on impulse. This was not usual for Aoko. Perhaps it was because she realized that this would be their last chance to have a normal conversation. After a few moments of contemplation, Sojuru conjured up a grin, cut straight through the tension.
そうだな。疲れているというより、生き生きしているように見える。仕方なく畑を耕していた狼が、 久しぶりに狩りに出ることになって機嫌を上げている感じだ。
Well, I would say you look more lively when you do tired. Like a wolf that's been forced to prowl fields for a long time, but it's excited to finally go on a hunt again. He seemed cheerful, like he was so happy for her. Without thinking, Aoko's hands went to her cheeks. If what he said were true, then she was grinning from ear to ear. There was just no way she would have made such a mistake.
とにかくありがとう。じゃあ、また明日。
Anyway, thanks again. See you tomorrow. Perhaps still not comfortable enough to wave at her, he said his goodbye, with sincerity in his voice and smile, and took his leave.
待って。こんな話があるの。聞いてから言って。
Wait, I have a question for you. Then you can go. Aoko called out after him. Her voice was cold, as she acknowledged herself of having been somewhat affable earlier. Yeah?
意味のない例え話よ。
This is just a hypothetical question.
そうね。あなたが空腹で死にそうな時、目の前に同じように空腹で死にそうな2匹の動物がいるとするわ。
Let's say you're on the brink of starvation and right in front of you are two animals also starving.
しずきくんに銃をあげる。それでどちらかの動物を撃って。右はライオンで、左は子猫。選ぶのはあなたの自由だから。
Someone gives you a gun and tells you to shoot one of them. The one on the right is a lion. The one on the left is a kitten. What do you do? It was a fable-like moral dilemma, especially the way in which it was cruel and rather preachy. The kind that would, if you thought too hard about, would never find an answer. Sojuro answered quickly and calmly.
いや、撃たないと思うよ。だって、自分の好きにしていいんだろ。それにほら、空腹ならお互い様だ。
I don't think I'd shoot at all. You asked me what I do, right? And come on, all three of us are starving. He was not in the least fazed by the dilemma. He gave a most incorrect response. Innocent response. So innocent, in fact, that it would give anyone pause.
長生きするわ、あなた。
You're going to live a long life, Suzuki.
すごいセリフだな。そんなことを言われたのは、多分君が初めてだ。
Oh, you think so? I think that's the first time anyone has ever said that to me. Adoring his face was a smile, wholly out of sync with his comment.
何よそれ。
What the heck is that supposed to mean? She regretted stopping him. Only she had just watched him go. This conversation would have never happened. Sojuro Suzuki made his way down the sloped street. Today is just like every day. He probably had to work late again. Only Aoko and Alice remained, with Alice doing what she could to simply blend in.
つくづくこっちのペースを乱してくれるわね。あの人畜無害な田舎者は。
Tama secretly throws me for a loop. Aoko clenched her right fist tightly as she cursed out loud. Anything to prevent herself from screaming at the top of her lungs. Whether that scream would be directed towards Sojuro or towards herself was another matter entirely.
青子。
Aoko heard Alice's soft voice behind her. Aoko knew what she was going to say, and she had known from her entire time. Ever since Alice, having shown no reaction to any of her other students, changed her expression upon seeing Sojuro.
言わなくてもいい。あいつでしょ、目撃者は。
You don't need to say it. It's him, right? The witness. Her voice was cold as ice. It was the voice of someone talking about a complete stranger. lion and the kitten. There are pros and cons to choosing either of the animals, the point being that she asked him to choose one of them. In terms of risk, the lion was the more dangerous choice. The instant the gun was pointed at it there was a chance it would fight back. Those who chose the lion required more courage, but any sense of guilt that came with holding a gun would be forgotten. Lions were fiercer creatures. A poor excuse to shoot an animal, perhaps, but one that certainly helped alleviate the guilt. But what about the kitten, the weaker creature? It goes without saying, the kitten would be the easier target of the two, but choosing it would be a disquieting decision for anyone. Even if the kitten had no chance to survive, it was still too senseless to carry out. And to Aoko, Sojuro was that choice.
てっきり私もそうだと思ってた。
I knew it was him too. When she felt that sinking feeling in the student council room, she ignored it. There was no getting around it. What must be done, she told herself. Until that is, Sojuro went and said that he did, causing her to resolve to waver. But the discomfort in her chest did not stem from any guilt she may have felt. She could care less about Sojuro. She was weak and would be incredibly easy to deal with. He was weak and would be incredibly easy to deal with. Yet for some reason, she could not dispel her reservations. A transfer student who moved to the city from the middle of nowhere with no family to speak of. You would notice if he were to suddenly disappear, compared to a person of some renown. If you were to kill him, it would be as simple as wringing a cat's neck. And it's all served to just piss her off. It was too lucky, like everything was neatly ahead of her. Handed to her, she wanted to just dropkick it right into orbit.
信じられない。私嫌がってる。これは違う。
Can't believe it. I hate it. This isn't how it's supposed to
こんな
be.
の私じゃない。
Why am I like this? Standing behind her, Alice heard all of the muttering. Nevertheless, she seemed ignored and said,
彼、首に布を巻いていたわね。
he had something wrapped around his neck. Something fine. Sorry, apparently someone has noticed. A wholly unrelated topic. Aoko returned to her senses.
首？
His neck?
ええ。水泳部の首とかけていたのかしら。
Yes, I wonder if it had something to do with being rejected by the swimming club. Alice had put much thought into this, as if it had a deeper meaning to her somehow.
そういえば、あいつ初めて会った時も首に布巻いてたっけ？襟を行儀よく締めてるから目立たないけど。
Now that you mention it, I saw him wearing it the same thing the first time we met. I must have missed it because he always has his collar done up. Conversation turned into idle nonsense. And though it solved none of her current problems, it did help calm Aoko's frazzled nerves.
サンキュー。落ち着いたわ、アリス。
Thanks, Alice. I'm good.
それと、気合も入った。
I'm ready to go.
全は急げ。あいつが言いふらす前に決着をつけよう。
Let's strike while the iron's hot, and end this before he spreads any rumors. Armed once more, Aoko turned her back to the school gate. For now, they would retire to the mansion and prepare for battle. So, I think this is a good point to leave with a cliffhanger to what happens next. It's been 2 hours and I really had fun doing it again, recording and reading the visual novel. So, it's been me, Shokimo, and I will see you in the next episode. And I hope you had fun listening to my voice and to the story. Anyway, until then, goodbye. Until you see us in the next episode.